Good evening, the July 10th, 2025 Whatcom County Planning Commission meeting is called to order. I'll call the roll. Sullivan Barton, that's me. Fred Brown.
Yes.
Daniel Dunn.
Yes.
Danita Eisenberg.
Yes.
Nicholas Greif.
Present.
Jim Hansen. Julie Jefferson. Dominic Masseri.
Here.
Scott Van Dalen.
Here.
Right, please join me for the flag photo. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Planning Director for Sonia, can you give us the department update?
Hi, commissioners. Yeah, I'm just gonna be brief. Just wanted to highlight that email I sent you guys this afternoon. If you didn't get a chance to read it, it's really about the schedule. Council has had some keen interest in, as you know, we talked about having sort of sequential review, so it's important to sort of get your reviews as succinct and efficient as possible, and then give those updates to the council. We've done that with chapter 1. We're scheduling chapter 6, the transportation element, which you guys finished at the last meeting in early August with them, and so we want to be able to keep that schedule. I know it's compressed and I know it's ambitious, and as I said in the email, there was a lot more on our plate this update cycle than we've ever had before. Quite a bit of work for PDF staff and other county staff have been involved more than in previous updates, and so that's a lot of moving parts. That's a lot of work and a lot of coordination, especially for our staff with the cities to work on the UGAs and all that. So I laid out in there those meeting dates that we've sort of set tentatively and the element types, and have you guys focus on those goals and policies to get an idea about the direction on these different topics that the county should be going on. Tonight obviously is Parks and Recreation, and Ben Knox, the Parks Director, and Rod Lamb, his staff are here to lead you through that discussion item as well. Public hearing. The idea is we want to maximize, given the short time we have, to maximize public opportunities for you to hear from the public on these different topics. There are a wide range of topics and issues. That's why it's a comprehensive plan that we have to go through. And so we're trying to come up with a system in a way that we can get your guys' input and then get it to council, so that we don't just duplicate that process for council. If we went through everybody on with you guys, then bring it to council late in the year, they have to kind of do it all again. So they wanted to have it up front. That's why we have those 2 joint meetings now scheduled with you and the council on July 22nd, which will be on the preferred alternatives for the UGAs as identified to date by the cities and county staffs. And then again on August 6th, we're still working with county council staff and council chair to figure out what topic of that meeting would be. We're hoping it would be the climate element. So both bodies get to hear about that. And then you guys will take it up solely, I think, at the next meeting here, August 14th meeting. And we'll have a hearing on that. We've also got a tentative daytime work session scheduled August 18th. We just need to confirm you guys, we get a quorum with you guys. That's a 10 a.m. to noon work session only. If we need more time. And then August 28th, development chapter, and then utilities, natural resources, environment will follow in September. The land use and housing chapters are the big ones. And those are what takes the most time, because we have to work through that information and that data and that analysis with the cities, and that's what takes longer. So after the final EIS is published, we'll have a better sense of those final alternatives, those final preferred alternatives for the cities. And we'll get input. You'll hear input from the council as well on the 22nd if they've got any particular concerns about those, or need additional information, so you guys will get to hear what council's thinking about that as well. So, that's kind of the context of it. It's a little more compressed, and I wish we had more time, but we don't. So I'm just asking you guys to be as efficient and succinct as you can in your language, to help move that process. Thank you for being happy to answer. Yes.
I think I have some comments and discussion about the timing of the comp plan. I think about bringing up under unfinished bridges at the end. Are you gonna be around at the end of the meeting?
Yes, we both with it. It doesn't go back nine.
That's right, we'll plan. We'll see.
All right. Thanks, Commissioner. All right. So, it's time now for open session for public comment. Eileen is our planning commission coordinator. Eileen, would you take over?
Yes. Welcome to the meeting. The meeting is being broadcast live. The audio is being recorded and will be posted to the county website. As noted on our website, members of the public may watch the meeting or join online or by phone. During the open public comment session, speakers may not speak to items that are scheduled on the agenda for a public hearing tonight. If you would like to provide public comment at this time, we will take the comments from those in the room first and then those online. Anyone in the room wish to speak at this time that has nothing to do with the public hearing? The public hearing tonight is on Parks and Recreation, Chapter 9 of the comp plan. Seeing none in the room, we will move to those online. I have Jacob Stewart. Jacob Stewart, would you like to provide public comment at this time that does not pertain to the Parks and Recreation?
That does not pertain to the Parks and Recreation?
Correct. This is just a public comment session. We will have a public hearing that is on the Parks and Recreation.
Actually, my comment more pertains to the Parks and Rec plan. So if I'll speak later.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Kaya Hayes, would you like to provide public comment at this time?
Yes, thank you. My name is Kai Hayes. I'm the Land and Water Policy Manager for Resources, a Whatcom-based environmental advocacy nonprofit. I just wanted to make a general comment. I appreciate the updated information related to the anticipated chapter schedule that was shared, at the opening of this meeting. We wanted to just really urge Whatcom County staff, planning commission, and council to work together to ensure that the Whatcom is updated and made public to reflect the most current plans and anticipated opportunities for public engagement during the remainder of the process. Staff affirmed that this was a reasonable request in recent meetings with council members, and we're really looking forward to these updates being made available to the public in order to support our work and the work of many others in the community to drive some meaningful public engagement for the process. Thank you.
Thank you. Chair, there are no other attendees online for open public comment session.
Thanks. So it's time now for commissioner comments. Are there any commissioner comments? Any commissioner comments? Commissioner Brown?
I do apologize that from the last meeting, we were having a discussion about the minutes at the time. I got an alert that someone was trying to get into my house. I was out of town at the time. I'd like to propose some corrections to those minutes, but I've also sent them on by email for discussion at the next meeting.
Okay.
We do those minutes
We already approved those minutes. We can,
from the last meeting.
from June 12th.
Or June 12th.
Yes.
So let's clarify, Commissioner Brown, which meeting were those?
The meetings we voted on at the which was
So the June 12th meeting.
June 12th meeting.
June 12th meeting.
Yeah. And as I said, when we were just about to vote, I get this alert, someone's trying to get into my house.
All right, we'll take care of that. Any other commissioner comments? All right, let's move along to approval of minutes. Let's see, oh, so it's gonna be approved at the following meeting, so we're not doing approval tonight. Very good, all right. And, time for the meeting topic. We'll have a public hearing and a work session. And if, Bennett Knopf, Park Department will be presenting. Yes, go ahead.
Well, again, Ben Knox, Parks Director, Whatcom County. Thanks for the opportunity to present our Parks and Recreation chapter number 9. As Mark had mentioned, I'm joined by Rod Land, who's our design and development manager. It was primarily he and myself who updated chapter for the department. We'll also acknowledge we have Lauren Clemens here from Public Works, who put input on the climate related elements to the chapter. So I think if there's comments between the three of us, those are the folks that would be responding on behalf of the county, in addition to the Mark, of course. So a little bit of background on our process. I think my purpose here, introduce the process we went through to update the chapter. Much of what Mark had put together in the memo, those are the major changes. I wanted just to introduce those. Get a little background on maybe where we're headed as a department and how we see the progression here in terms of the relationship between the comprehensive plan, our CPROS updates over time. And then I think, I understand we've had a number of changes to the document. I think we're going to show that, and then just as you all wish to proceed, run through the document and answer any questions you have, as opposed to me going through each individual edit that we made. So is that an acceptable approach? Okay. So as far as our process, it really began for us with getting instructions from the executive's office that there's information that came from council on the things that they would like to see. So we did examine those as we began our review. So some of the things you'll see in here related to more equitable inclusion in the community in terms of comments, in terms of our processes. We sought to include that language. Certainly there was support for some park activities, forest management, planning, trail activities as well. So that was our initial effort. Then we began our review as a department, and I will say, maybe compared to 2016 updates, we really did have quite a few changes. So took an active role in that. Met early on with the consultant that Mark's team had put together to provide just some general comments. I think I'll say initially we thought we would have maybe a more drastic update to the plan, kind of reflecting new leadership and then some of our objectives. We sort of scaled that back, given some staff capacity over the months that ensued, but I think you'll see we did make substantial edits to the document. Our review then transferred to a review with our Parks and Recreation Commission, Advisory Commission. So with Cliff's support, we had 3 meetings with our commission and made every effort to try to get their input. There was public comments at those meetings as well. And obviously they had the public process where we've had comments from the public generally on the planning. We also had conversations, because there's overlap on some of the things we do with efforts, multimodal trails that might be included in multimodal active transportation network that's in chapter 6. So we had engagement with the bike ped committee as well through this process to try to ensure some consistency between those 2 chapters. That was an effort that was intentional. And then now we are at the point where we sat with PBS and kind of reviewed the comments that we had, and that's the document that you see before you today. So that's been our process. As Mark had outlined in his memo, the significant change to the chapter, and I'll just read these and kind of comment a little bit. So identifying regional park improvement needs, such as siting and design standards for the location and user needs of regional park facilities, and planning for future park expansion and improvements. We made some alterations to the document to take out some references. Maybe there was a chapter or a segment on multi-use campgrounds. For me, that didn't make sense to have that by its own. So some of the edits that we made were really moving around elements of the document to make it more up to date and then really make a little more sense. So we expanded the regional park improvement discussion to include some of those elements that really probably should have been within that. There was a lot of effort to improve our discussion of regional trail networks. So we we made effort to, focus on goals and policies relative to the introduction language. So we've made a lot of adjustments to the introduction language, realizing that's really not the primary purpose of the document is the goals and objectives. So we updated goals and objectives to reflect where we're heading as a department related to regional trails, multimodal trail network, as well as recreational trails. So try to make that a clear distinction in the document. Again, responding to some of the comments from council and really our focus as we try to improve the planning that we do as a department moving forward. So we made focus on increasing intergovernmental and non-governmental coordination as a primary goal. And with policies related to that, so that we can increase regional opportunities for intergovernment and partnership opportunities to that have approaches that help us meet our park and recreational needs and mandates. And then finally, there was the addition of the language associated with House Bill 1181 related to climate that is at minimal meeting the objectives of that requirement. So let's see, I wanted to really at this point just talk about some of the things that the chief public comment on, just kind of give a discussion of how we're viewing this update in light of our CPROS update that we just went through, and then the future updates. So we are moving to really the changes that we've made, or we're trying to set up our next effort to improve our CPROS plan that we view as really the guiding document for our department. So you'll see references to some of the changes that we've recommended that were maybe very specific and maybe belong within the CPROS plan. So over time, we're trying to make sure that that plan is reflective of the actual objectives and SMART goals that we have as the department that give us our operational blueprint for the next 6 years. We went into the last update for our CPROS plan, and which was just completed in 2024, with the intention that within 2 to 3 years we would, because of staff capacity, we weren't able to do a robust update in 2024. We want to go through a more robust process here within the next year or 2, 3, as budget allows, to really update that segment so that it reflects more of the implementation of the goals and policies that are included in the comp plan. So you'll see that we're trying to transition over time. So to set up maybe the next comprehensive plan update to be a little more robust and really have those two documents be working in tandem. So that's very intentional on our part. Again, we look to have that next CPROS update in 26 to 28 if we can find the budget for that. We have made some effort in the department to expand our capacity related to implementing the multimodal paths that are included in map 9.2 and that support the goals and objectives throughout much of the document. We are in the process. So we didn't recommend substantial changes to that map, primarily because we as a department have not gotten that capacity in place yet. So again, kind of tying in this notion, excuse me, when we update our next CPROS plan, we'll have much more analysis of trail networks and our efforts, and kind of lay out more of the scheduling for how we see that moving forward, funding opportunities. So we didn't make substantial changes to the map, but we do think it's critical that those multimodal trails in map 9.2 remain, because that is the primary goal for our department moving forward. Excuse me. Similarly, we are adding capacity as a department on recreational trails, so equestrian, mountain biking, hiking, shared use paths throughout the system. We're looking to hire a land management supervisor actually starting in August. So you'll be seeing more effort on that to outline our plans and objectives as part of our CPROS plan moving forward in that regard. So I think those are the highlights of what I wanted to talk about. Again, we thought maybe leave it your meeting, so how you want to proceed. Again, we've got staff here to answer questions. And so look forward to your review. Thank you.
So we are due a public hearing. We usually have that first. So Eileen, would you take over, please?
Yes. As stated before, this public hearing is on chapter 9 on Parks and Recreation of the 2025 comprehensive plan update. We will start with those in the room first and then move to those online. I will set a 3-minute timer. And I will call those on the list. We'll have Sonia, Max, Todd, Ellsworth, Daniel, Probst go first, and then we'll move on from there. Oh, absolutely. Let me get the timer.
Feels really horrible. Hi, thanks for allowing me time to speak this evening. My name is Sonia Max. I'm here because I'm really passionate about recreation and the incredible recreational opportunities that we have in Whatcom County. In no small part because of the wisdom and foresight of this commission, planning staff, recreation staff, and other county entities in securing land and open spaces for recreation and the health of our watershed. While Whatcom County is very fortunate in the vast quantity of parks and trails that we have, there's one important area of opportunity that could really bring this county up to par with others in the state. And that is the planning and development of multi-use trail corridors that connect population centers, as Bennett mentioned. These are trails that are generally flat or gently graded or wide. They're accessible to disabled residents and ultramarathoners alike. They don't require a fancy or expensive mountain bike or hardcore training to enjoy. They allow children to learn how to ride a bike in a safe manner. They connect neighborhoods to schools and parks and connect communities to each other. We've all heard of the Olympic Discovery Trail, the Centennial Trail, the Methow Community Trails, the Cascade Trail from Cedar Woolley to Concrete, and the Whitehorse Trail from Arlington to Darrington. Investments in these trails are returning millions of dollars of benefits to their respective communities and improved health, safety, and economic outcomes. Small towns along these corridors are being revived economically with the influx of people who need to exercise outside and are happy to spend a few dollars along the way. People drive for hours to get to the Olympic Peninsula. They pay for lodging and food and gas so they can have a pleasant bike ride away from cars. And in many cases, these trails are also used for transportation by nearby residents who cannot or do not want to drive. While I understand you voted in your June 12th meeting to remove the Beta Baker and post-millennium trails from the transportation element maps, I believe they are still a key component of the recreation chapter. They're currently conceptual lines that can be moved a quarter mile here or there to avoid a sensitive habitat or a property rights issue. These are negotiations that happen in the planning phase of any trail. They're not issues unique to these two trails. Port Angeles recently secured a $16 million federal grant to plan a multi-use trail from Bainbridge Island to La Push. That is $16 million of taxes that you and I paid that's getting invested in neighboring counties because they have the vision to work through the obstacles that took the post-millennium and Beta Baker trails out of the transportation chapter. I'm asking you to please keep all of the conceptual trail corridors in the recreation chapter. At the very least, it does no harm to have them there. When a funding opportunity does arise, having those trails on the map is the only way staff can follow through. Multi-use trails are one of the best opportunities for improving our quality of life in Whatcom County. Thank you.
Thank you.
I timed it.
Good job.
Todd Ellsworth.
Hello, my name is Todd Ellsworth and I'm the founder and CEO of Recreation Northwest. We're a local nonprofit organization that's been Bellingham based for the last 14 years. The impact that we've had goes even further than that. And I think most recently in the Bellingham Herald, I'd like to give a nod to the Parks Department for the money that was received and it's going to be dispersed throughout the county. And it was nice to see a little nod to some work that we have done together to really show off the economic benefits of outdoor recreation. We were the organization that got the funding and commissioned Earth Economics to do that study, and it really set the ground for demonstrating the value of recreation in our community. And so I'd like to thank Sonia for alerting me what's happening. I've been talking with Bennett and others in our community. It's been a lot of behind the scenes work that I've been doing over the last 2 years. And essentially to go back and give you some perspective on specifically the Coast Millennium Trail. This was really a project that was started a quarter of a century ago at the urging of the Trillium Corporation. And they put the funding and people in place to have a plan put together for the Coast Millennium Trail. Our Council of Governments picked that up and ran with it for a couple of years. And then the support for that went away. And so I've been talking behind the scenes with local municipalities, whether it's City of Bellingham, Whatcom County, City of Ferndale, Lummi Nation, on how we as Recreation Northwest, as a local nonprofit, could become the stewards of this plans that, as Sonia said, weren't quite in stone, but trying to be figured out. And it's an interesting time as we're working behind the scenes to give new energy to this project that unfortunately, because it hasn't had a steward and some of that community conversation and connection is happening, has fallen through. And so we see this as a really good time to really reflect on what the county is trying to do to bring our multimodal regional trail plans back together, specifically with the Coast Millennium Trail. In hearing some of the comments in the last planning commission, I think there's some misnomers on really who owns that project. Currently, it's like a foster child that has no home. And Recreation Northwest is willing to give it a home and propel this to get the plan done. The other lens that I'm been putting on this is more than just a transportation and recreation trail. It's actually a cultural heritage trail. And so I've been working with Whatcom Museum, Bellingham County Tourism, and really trying to bring these plans to light with respect to the evolution that we've had in our thinking and planning over the last quarter century.
Thank you for your comment.
Thank you.
Daniel
Sure,
first.
hold just a moment. Commissioner Dunn has a question.
Todd, if I could ask you a question, that'd be all right?
Yes, please.
Great, so with the Millennial Trail, I think for me, when I think about trails, I think about like property rights. And so, and like if somebody's like, hey, I wanna put a trail across my backyard or my house, I'm like, no, I don't want you to do that. And I would expect that those property rights to be respected. And so in this case, what sounds like what happened was that the trail went across BP's property and they showed up here and said essentially they felt like they were never consulted, never asked, never like involved in the process. There's sort of informal trail, but they were definitely opposed to having it there. They'll be able to use those lands if they need to expand or something changes or whatever in the future. Could you tell me about your perspective on trails and property rights, and specifically any engagement you've done with BP to discuss how they feel about the trail going across their property?
So Ken Wilcox, if you know that name, he's a local guidebook author, hiking guidebook author. He was hired through Trillium to be the author of the Coast Millennium Trail Plan 26 years ago, 27. And I talked to him today to try and prepare for this and understand why wasn't this communicated? And I think this may have been done 25 years ago. And I don't know if that conversation ever carried through. Because what's really interesting about this is as you look through county planning, city planning, all these different planning documents, it's in there. And even in the Council of Governments Whatcom bicycle planning map, it shows this route going through BP property. So it's my sense that decades ago, this conversation happened and there was some agreement with BP. Because the plans show it. And then this was just completely coincidental. The Mount Baker Bicycle Club even got looped into this project, and this is a Coast Millennium Trail logo. There's still signs out currently on some of the bollards, whether it's in Semiahmoo or even on California Street in the City of Bellingham property rights. But these maps have been out here, and so for me, it's very challenging to know when that gap in communication happened, because these are old maps that have been around for a long time. And so it seems like somewhere along the way, there was just a gap. And I'm curious what the impetus was for BP to bring this up and say, we don't want this now, even though they do allow public access through these right of ways currently.
And I guess if you were gonna take this on as kind of as your baby, I guess, would you be willing or should reach out to BP and ask you that question?
Can I,
Yeah.
Yeah, I am, and I apologize, we were not at the last meeting because we had our Parks Commission meeting at the exact same time, so, and wish we were. I think what, I think, I don't want to correct Todd anyway, but, when we talk about an owner of the project, these are, it's really the Parks Department, we are setting ourselves up, as I kind of alluded to, we're adding capacity to be able to do the planning that's necessary for these trails, at least as they are in the county. So we're taking those steps. So I think it's, I can't speak to any of the conversations prior for my predecessor, but we are, and I did speak with Pam Brady after the meeting to talk to her about, what the conceptual nature of those trail routes are. And, if, there are caveats on map 9.2 that make it clear that they're conceptual under any discussions of where trails might go would be at the willing sellers and that sort of thing. So we had that caveat in there. But we are looking as a department to then move forward with planning processes that then engage and determine where those routes would be. And so as it relates to the map and BP, I can't speak to whether they had approved those in the past or not, but we do anticipate, as we are a department leading those discussions. We look at groups like Recreation Northwest as they're the key supporters in the community that can help advocate for, raise funding, convene. So it's more of a partnership in that respect, but as far as the ownership of the trail, and the planning for that, it really is the county that would be leading that charge, and we intend to have the Parks Department be taking a much more active role in that moving forward. Does that clarify?
I'll have some more follow-up questions, but I think for now, just so we don't impede them.
Room to acknowledge BP is in the room. I'm here representing BP today.
Oh, thank you. I was just gonna say, when we get through the public hearing, we would like you to talk, and I did not know that you were representing BP.
That's fine. That's why I thought I raised my hand. I'm low and formal, came right from work.
Okay.
Please state your name for the record.
Daniel Probst. My name is Daniel Probst. I am the project lead for the Bellingham Mount Baker Trail. And for 116 years, our community has been working on a trail system to Mount Baker. And for the last decade, I have been leading that work. If you had time to read through your packet, I know it was almost 50 pages worth of comment, but one of those articles from the Bellingham Herald is actually dated today, July 10th, 1909, when the trail was just under construction. It actually completed that summer in one summer, 16 miles of trail. Currently, the route that's in the map now is 99.9% in public land ownership. There is only 100 yards of this route all the way to Baker. It is in private hands right now. And that actually is along the Jones Creek deck that the county has built, Mount Macme. And over the last 2 years, I worked with Whatcom Land Trust and Councilmember Frazee to purchase 40 acres, for the county to purchase 40 acres along Jones Creek so that we can make the connection over Stewart Mountain down into Acme. With only 10 miles new trail between existing trail sections and logging road, with only 10 miles of new trail, we could complete the first phase and link Bellingham to Baker. And how you can help tonight is by reviewing the comments that I've made in writing in making a motion to approve those comments. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Next in the room, we have Catherine Mitchell.
I did prepare these comments before any of that preamble discussion, but just gonna go ahead and read them. Yes, so hello, everyone. I am Catherine Mitchell, and I am a senior environmental engineer at BP's Cherry Point Refinery in Blaine, Washington. First of all, I have to say that BP Cherry Point truly does appreciate this opportunity to provide comments on this proposed Chapter 9. And that's myself and we at Cherry Point take a lot of pride in our community and public partnerships. My intent, our intent here is to continue to seek a very positive collaborative approach to our partnerships and agreements with the public where possible and to the greatest extent possible, practical and possible. So with that in mind, I'd like to offer a little feedback regarding our concerns over some instances within the proposed updates that appear to be permanent changes which infringe on private property and are incompatible with existing land use and zoning designations. So as we've already discussed, specifically the map 9-2, which shows portions of the Coast Millennium Trail running through the Cherry Point private property. We don't believe this is the best route for this trail. Beyond the primary private property issue, we also have concerns about portions of the trail near proximity to the refinery, which we believe is an incompatible use. As you know, in Chapter 2 of the Whatcom County Comprehensive Plan, it contains language in multiple places designed to protect Cherry Point heavy industrial area from development of incompatible uses within the Cherry Point urban growth area. So similarly, leaving the Coast Millennium Trail, but similarly, BP Cherry Point has questions and concerns about references to ensuring ongoing recreational uses in the area near Gulf Road, which is proposed in policy 9E5. We'd like you to also note that that specific area or that policy does not acknowledge the long-standing heavy industrial use or the current heavy impact industrial zoning in that area. So finally, yes, Pam did mention that Whatcom County Parks and Recs did ask BP staff to contemplate and recommend an alternate Coast Millennium Trail. We took a look at it, we put that in our written comments. We would suggest or believe that that proposed alternative for your consideration would really maximize public safety and refinery security and be the best option as we see at this point in time. So thank you for your time and feedback.
Thank you for your comment. Anyone else in the room wish to speak at this time? Seeing no one else in the room, we're gonna move to those online. Jacob Stewart. Jacob Stewart, would you like to speak?
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Great. So first off, thanks for giving me the mic. It's clear the commission is really passionate about serving the citizens of Whatcom County, and I'd like to thank each of the members for your service. I've lived here for about 20 years. Former member of the Bellingham Greenways Advisory Committee, 2 kids in elementary school, huge advocate for Whatcom County's trail system, big part of the reason I've chosen to make Whatcom County my home. One aspect I think that's missing is a keystone trail, much like the Centennial Trail of Snohomish County. In fact, my family makes frequent or semi-frequent trips down to the North Trailhead just to tootle around on the trail with our kids. Secondly, I had the opportunity to review the meeting of the last Planning Commission, where a motion was passed to remove the Coast Millennium Trail from the transportation section. It really appears to me that that was premature, and standard practice when dealing with uncertainty over a particular landowner, even as large as one as BP, is to leave the concept in place and to move the line on the map at some future point. And I really want to clarify this. The line is just the line. It's not any kind of land seizure. Things change, and it does way more harm to toss the baby with the bathwater than to let it sit. I can tell you from my time on the Bellingham Greenways Advisory Committee, they move lines all the time as projects come into fruition. I urge the commission to take whatever steps necessary to preserve the Coast Millennium Trail concept in the remainder of the commission's work. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. We have Kai Hayes. Would you like to provide a public comment for chapter 9? Seeing no hand raised, there is no other attendees. Chair.
We'll close the public hearing.
We start? So, I didn't see EP's public comment about the new trail or potential new trail route. Did that get sent to commission?
Yes, we did.
It was pretty late today.
It was
Oh,
pretty late.
Okay,
I can pull it up.
Even like today.
okay, great, but wait, it's on the record though. Cool, so I would probably start off, maybe some questions, for you, Bennett, so looking at RCWs, there's kind of like 5 things that we should be doing. And I was wondering if you just like kind of generally point out, I'm gonna go into detail, but just point like where they are, so I kind of understand in the thing, so. Parks and Recreation element that implements that is consistent with the capital facilities plan element as it relates to park and recreation facilities. Do we have a capital facilities plan in here, and does it relate like?
So
Together.
that is in chapter 4.
Not just me.
So we do have capital facilities plan. Okay, it's in chapter.
And I got one too.
Amber.
No, Amber Alerts.
Okay, so that is in chapter 4, and is it referenced in here? Like, is there a part where it talks about like, here's capital facilities plan, here's the general plan for how we're spending money, what we're doing?
That's a good question. I know we have that reference in our CPROS plan as well. So when it comes to implementation of that plan, and we have that as part of our CPROS plan. I don't know that we have it I think it's because it's in chapter 4, I believe it's compliant.
Yeah, the capital facilities, chapter 4 is the capital facilities element, and then the capital facilities plan will be part of the appendix. It gets adopted actually by council, part of the budget in November. And that's where that stuff is. So any park projects, that's where we are, at least for the next 6 years.
Okay, yeah, but you referenced that in here somewhere, yeah?
And that's a good question. That's a
Dan can, yeah, let me give you some context to those RCWs too. Most of the RCW stuff that's required for the parks and rec element is actually going to be in the CPROs. That's a part of the space plan, the demand or levels of service and all.
Right,
that.
that's what I was wondering, like,
Yeah.
I didn't really see any of that,
Yeah.
like, where's, how it's
It's-
complying with it?
It's a little weird because the GMA says the parks and recreation element is optional, it isn't required. The county has chosen to do one because we wanted to promote parks and rec. Technically, we don't have to do one unless the state legislature funds it, and they've never done that. So the county took on that effort, funded it ourselves, working with the Parks Department, but it's the CPROs that's really the operational plan that Ben talks about for the Parks Department. The Parks and Rec element and comp plan, this chapter 9 is just kind of more getting to the GMA stuff that, hey, it's important. We want to make it a part of GMA, but the functional operational stuff is either in the capital facilities plan or it's in the CPROs.
Okay, yeah, I might suggest that, if you're looking at this chapter, you could just refer to that somewhere, because if I look at the RSW, they go, oh, what's this element, what are the required parts of this element to comply with the comp plan? Like, there's, a half dozen things you call out, and be good, just like, maybe even in a preamble or somewhere in there, just say, pick up a little plans here, but. Cool, so the next one is, like, Mark, like you talked about, the estimates of park and recreation demand, for at least 10-year period, which to me is kind of like a level of service, I guess. But that's also in the CPOS.
Yes.
Okay, great. An evaluation of tree canopy coverage within the urban growth area.
That's, yeah, so that's in your element. Those maps are in the back, I think the last page of the element with to those. So that,
I'm just trying to work out what you're referring to.
The plan is an RCW requirement.
No, what document are you going through?
It's the RCWs, 36.78A.070 feet. That's so in the RCWs, here's comp plan, and then each chapter has its own like little chunky section, and that lays out, this is exactly what you should have. And if you don't have that stuff, generally, it's like, well, you can appeal it and say, well, you don't have the stuff that you're supposed to have. But this is an optional element, so it's not like super critical, but still, if we're doing it, we need to do it.
go ahead.
Okay, so your estimate, could you maybe just tell us like about that? Like, so The element shall include an estimates of park and recreation demand for at least a 10-year period. You can have an elevator speech to that.
So we have that in our CPROS plan specifically, that is a chapter when, in CPROS plan, it forms a discussion for recommendations that we might looking at, and that's based on projections that have been made by plan design services, so.
Great. Sorry.
I had a follow-up on that, and I know that it's not in this chapter, but it's referenced in those other documents. And I don't know that we're actually dipping into that, but my question was if those established level of services, when were those established? How were those levels of service established, and should those be reviewed as well as we're planning all the stuff we're gonna do? Are those numbers too low, too high?
So this is where we did not update those primarily because our CPROS plan this last round was not, it was as I mentioned in my preamble, it was a relatively light update. Our focus on our next CPROS update, which is in 2026 and 28, if we can have it funded, would be the opportunity for us then to look at revisions to those based on the analysis of demand in the community. So unfortunately, we haven't had the capacity to do that level of analysis this round. And it's just a function of the changes that we've had post-COVID and a lot of those issues that we have with staffing. So our intent is that in the next comprehensive plan update, based on a really robust CPROS plan update in 26 or 20, we would come back and do that. That's where we are. So
Because there's a parks acreage level of service, the trail mileage level of service, and then also there's the shoreline access percentage. Would that also be looked at that same time? Okay.
And if I may, Dominic, Commissioner Mosso, the levels of services I understand have been developed in the late 90s and have been adjusted only a couple of times since then. Former council member Brown might recall that I think a trail level of service was changed, acknowledging that there's a pretty severe deficit. And because I think it was the snapshot in time in the late 90s or late 80s of population versus facilities, that essentially was what I believe established those numbers. So our next update to the sleeper is we want to do a better analysis of evaluating, are those even appropriate levels of surface metrics? Are they the right categories? And that does take a fairly robust public process.
There's some interesting discussion in the CPROs about demand for recreational facility. This isn't necessarily symmetrically associated with population growth. Right. I mean, like mountain biking is its own thing and attracts people from outside the jurisdiction that you can't base it on just our internal needs. So it's an interesting conversation about, and the recreational needs change and demands change, right? You didn't have electric bicycles, for example, 10 years ago, right? So like we do now. There's some interesting technological changes that change the demand.
Let's see, next one is, the evaluation of tree camping coverage within the urban growth area.
we reference that those are included now in the chapter, at the end, and they're in, the maps that were added to.
In here?
Yes.
Yeah, you-
Very end.
Yeah, Commissioners, you'll see that on page 9-16 and 9-17 elements. And then you'll see in the maps. The map series 9-3. This was a recent a requirement change to GMA by the state legislature as a part of HB 1181. That's part of the final impact bill. And all it was just document the frequent coverage of the that's it. No, nothing else. So that's all it is.
I think I'll take the growth opportunity for us. I've mentioned the staff person that we're adding some capacity here, focus on land management. So the applicants are in there. We have some ability now to move forward in further planning to respond.
Great, and last one is an evaluation of intergovernmental coordination opportunities to provide regional approaches for meeting park recreation plan. I feel like that was kind of broadly throughout the chapter.
And we did add language to reflect that was also council consideration as well early on. So that's-
I can just keep talking. You should not interrupt me when you're tired of me.
Alright, and I've got some things I would like to organize. Commissioner McCary.
Oh, I was just gonna, maybe we take turns.
Yeah, go.
I wanted to discuss the Beta Baker trail map that was brought up by, Daniel,
The Bellingham.
or the Bellingham, sorry. Yeah, I didn't know if you could also, Eileen, if you could find the public comment that showed that map.
Yes.
And I just had a question why they were so different, especially the comment mentioned that a lot of that was actually on county land potentially already.
Not counting public.
Okay, but still, okay. Again,
What's your question exactly?
I'm just curious why the big difference. Here, it looks like most of it is proposed, and the other map, not that one, the one that was from Daniel showed that it was
Daniel.
established.
Okay.
So I'm happy to give you our perspective as a department. I think I've alluded to it, so for us, map 9.2, and it's actually some of the public comments reference this, it's conceptual in nature. It's in the comp plan. It then gives us the basis for, some of the implementation actions that we might pursue, such as grants. And so when we drill down into the details on that, that's really where it's our CPRO's plan that comes into play. And so exact routes, detailed routes, and Daniel obviously knows his trail that he's proposing better than anyone in the room. But chapter 9.2 is a zoom out, and so we're really, it's conceptual in nature. So for us as a department, that's sufficient in the comp plan at this stage. And we would take our staff capacity, working with partners that we kind of described, going after planning grants to really refine those alignments as part of our CPRO's plan and then the individual planning efforts for individual trail segments. So the discrepancy is we're comfortable with map 9.2 being very conceptual in nature. Obviously, members who are advocating for specific trails may want to see those be in more detail, but we just don't maintain that that's actually necessary for the comp plan.
Yeah, but here it shows it as most of that trail is proposed versus constructed, right? And in your map, it shows most of it is constructed versus proposed.
Correct.
So is that just?
I think there's one discrepancy in terms of the mapping, that we do have, there's the potential route, as Daniel's map shows, of it going along some of the existing trail systems in Lake Whatcom Park. So that is a change on the ground. Those trails some of those have been constructed since, the initial trails proposed. Like I said, we didn't update that map specifically for this planning effort because we are just adding capacity to take those steps. So the next plan update, we would likely come back with some significant edits to that map. Does it make sense at this point to update that map now? We maintain that it's not necessary for our purposes. No, Roger, you want to add anything to that? So I think that's the reason for the discrepancies. We haven't taken the step to match those two up necessarily. There are other segments of Beta Baker Trail, for instance, where you might have the same issue. So it's not just related to the development of the bigger trail.
Do you want to?
Yeah, I'd like to ask Daniel.
Thank you. To bring some perspective to this, the last time, because we went through this 10 years ago when the last comp plan, and the planning commission actually wanted to throw this entire map out the window. They said that they looked at everything that said it was proposed and nothing was constructed, and they want to throw the whole thing out the window. And so the ultimate compromise was to show the sections of trail that are complete. So that's why there are solid lines and dotted lines, and that's why I've made a request to update the trail.
Yeah, and my thinking is, I know staff's just feeling that we're short on capacity to maybe do any more analysis. But if it's been largely done, it would just need to be reviewed that this was accurate, and then this could be updated to map that or match that. Am I misunderstanding that?
Yeah, the segment, I think we could have a full discussion just analyzing the different segments. My understanding is the segment that it depends on where the route goes. In the original plan, it goes along the Hertz Trail. But, then Daniel's new map shows it as we do acknowledge it would go up some of the existing trails that we have now, like the, along Truck Road, in that area in Lake Whatcom Park. I can't speak to, he shows a dotted line. I think that's on federal property. I'm not sure. Just above Blue Mountain. Daniel, if you can speak to that.
So it's all DNR.
DNR, so that's not something we control as Parks Department, so those are DNR roads, I believe. So again, we don't speak for DNR, and the routing is not necessarily, it may be constructed, but is it approved by DNR? I think that's a valid question.
So I see this, some of this stuff is trail that is there, but that's not necessarily secured as an easement or anything that's necessarily established as the trail.
Correct, because all the routes are conceptual.
Okay, I see.
And there is another map in the comments that actually details every single public landowner along the corridor, so that's this route better aligns that with that corridor.
But this map is showing construction and proposed trails, but not, this one is showing actually secured county constructed trails as far as.
We didn't update it for this round. It shows conceptual alignments. I think if it's shown there as constructed, then it is constructed.
Okay.
So just to clarify, this map we're looking at here is the map you guys have, not updated. It's the dotted lines are conceptual. Some of them might have been constructed, but we don't know.
I will add, there has been one update, and that is, this was acknowledgement of the potential changes for WashDOT. They have changes and more focus on multimodal improvements along state routes. So we did add a potential, which is more of it's a feasible opportunity of what we want to acknowledge in the comp plan, because it could unlock opportunities for grant funding from WashDOT, or when they have a project along SR 542, that if it's on our map, they're more likely to engage in that. So that's the dotted line, conceptual line along SR 542 Mount Baker Highway, between Sunset Drive connecting to the Beta Baker. So it's an alternate Beta Baker route. That is the only change that we have made to this unit.
But this map isn't even updated with constructed trails that the county and otherwise have, right? How much work would it be to get at least this map to have what reflects what's on the ground right now?
I think it's possible. I think we rely on PDS to actually update that map at this point. So I don't know what the potential is.
Well,
of the
it's-
process here.
We can update it, but I mean, it's your data, right? And what's on the ground, and what's conceptual and what's built.
I will say it is possible. Again, we contend that, having these conceptually on this map is sufficient for our purposes at this point as we embark on one.
Yeah, and I'm comfortable not changing the proposed, but it seems odd if we're updating this to not at least have updated maps, because somebody's gonna pick this up like me and say, well, this is how much is constructed. Other people show up with other maps, and knowing a lot of that was not secured, but is maybe constructed, but proposed to be part of it. But still, I would think that our maps that we have should be as updated as possible. I don't know how it feels.
We can look at that. We can.
Commissioner Brown, go ahead.
Just to this point, I know there's at least one person who's very passionate about trails. I think it'd be relatively easy to use a high quality GPS and simply walk the area and in the process mark down what the surface is and then generate a shapefile and send it to parks. I think the whole thing can be done as long as it takes you to walk the trail. So,
You are correct. The technology exists.
yeah. I mean, I've got a $1,500 GPS that's accurate down to 1 centimeter.
So I have a couple of questions for you. One question, one's informational. Back on our planning commission, mission coordinator Eileen's first day, we had a bunch of hockey players here. And they were talking about indoor facilities, and park department said, we have nothing in the comprehensive plan or in the county documents that allow us to sponsor indoor facilities. or to build them. And so the planning commission recommended to the park department that they add indoor facilities to their part of the comprehensive plan.
I do believe we added consideration. We didn't actually make a specific recommendation to construct that specific indication, but we referenced the need in our next CPROS update, which is where we really get it, how do we define what our levels of service are? How do we break it down in any more detail besides just, we have a rough categorization of activity centers. And so we want to go through that process. So it's in there as a recommendation that we actually do that in our CPOS plan. I believe that's the language that it had.
And that was what we asked for, is for you to add it. Not that you had to create them, but that if the opportunity arose, that you could do it without having to come back and go through this process again.
You would pull exact reference, but I believe that is in here.
Yeah, because I know we had talked about, there's also been requests for an aquatic center as well as an ice rink and so like that. All of those are very expensive public facilities.
Yes,
So,
yes, they are, but and we were told that it needed to be in this document, so then we're part of the able to do it.
Yeah, policy 9G3. So
Thank you. So then I have, I will have to get back to, the Centennial Trail and the VP property. So, I hate to say this, but I'm in my 11th year here. And this is not the first time that I've, heard VP brought up on the trail going across it, and VP has been here before and expressed their concerns, and over this, well, it's over 10 years, expressed their concerns, and every time they've been here before and expressed it, and every time they are more and more and more firm that trail should not be running through their refinery land. And there's two things. One, if they expand, then that trail has to come up. And the other thing is, they're really rare, but it doesn't make sense to have the public walking right by somebody's refinery that could have a problem. And it just, I think a couple of people didn't realize that the VP has been talking about it for that long. And I've been here for several of these conversations.
I mean, to your point, I think the more significant issue is BP has made it clear they don't want it and the permission is required. So.
I think message received. I think it's, as I laid out, I can't speak to what happened prior to my coming on, but we are making an effort right now. It's some of the language in here updates to reflect the need to collaborate, work with partners. So we're certainly putting in place the mechanisms as a department to be able to work with, through planning processes that engage with stakeholders, potential landowners who may or may not be open to these trails. So we hope to have better conversations with BP. I mean, that's the absolute plan. I guess I'd have to apologize we hadn't done that prior to this update, because we weren't really, in our mind, weren't making updates to the map. And so there was an assumption that the map, I think as we alluded to, that had been in some level, there had been conversations decades ago. And so, yeah, that's me a pulp on that, but moving forward, we intend to have those conversations.
Go ahead.
I do acknowledge and appreciate that you did say it's proposed and we need to partner. I do see that and hear that, and thank you for providing some of that background that even I wasn't totally aware of. I think my recommendation or suggestion for consideration would be, if it would be possible to just take the conceptual route and not route it through the public property. If we're saying it doesn't matter if we're routing a line here or there, because what I've seen and experienced through my short time involved in this discussion is, I keep hearing this. It's been that way forever.
Mm-hmm.
And then, because it's such a public document, I think it offers the opportunity to really confuse the public that is accessible, or that is the trail. And in their mind, that becomes the truth. And it just becomes more and more difficult to then potentially move that conceptual trail in the future.
So I've taken two notes tonight. One is, I haven't seen what you
Yeah,
sent, but
sorry.
we look to incorporate that. And then following up on the discussion about showing existing trails as part of this map.
Commissioner Brown, you have put your hand up.
So one of the things I haven't seen in any of these maps is the idea of using, or at least trying to approach the pipeline, people who have pipelines. Because to me, they're a great place to put a trail. And all the infrastructure is buried under the ground. There's usually a 30 to 50 foot wide easement. You can't build on it, so you're not impacting any future construction. And the landowner already has their land impaired partially and would probably be open to some additional consideration to allow working trail. It's completely compatible use. I mean, I've got two properties, for example, that would be ideal places to add a trail or to connect the trail system because they've got pipeline easements through it. So I'd just encourage looking at those pipeline easements because they crisscross the county significantly, right from the border going from both the north and south border of the county.
And just to kind of
Go ahead.
echo one of that, I think the public comment was on the great trails that are kind of south of us, the Centennial Trail, was Iron Goat Trail. Those are awesome trails, and they're on railroad right of ways, I think. And if we have something like that here, that's a great use for that land. I think the gas, easement is very way, power line easement. I mean, power lines are different, but like those kind of easements. But I don't know if those connect through to the places we're talking about, going from population center to population center. Yeah.
I'll add one other freebie. The pipeline companies maintain them for free. Right? They keep them just in grass forever.
And there are those suggestions in the chapter to look at those opportunities. Or maybe not specifically, our utility lines, we'll have to check that. I think, you do recognize that we need to reach a question.
I don't know if I can just check in with Nick and Sunita online, sort of, sometimes it's hard to talk when you're like on Zoom, we're all here, whatever. So make sure you feel like you have an opportunity to say anything if you want to about the trailer on that.
Go ahead, Commissioner Price.
I'm going back and forth, so I will. And appreciate the conversation so far. I think that the difference for me on this particular topic compared to the transportation element was that the maps in the transportation element didn't say proposed. They just showed that the trail existed as far as any user could tell. And so there was, that clear confusion that I think was a valid argument. And I think also the idea that, we were saying this was like a part of a transportation plan, even though it really wasn't designed with transit in mind, it meant to me that it made sense to remove from that document, especially because it was only the two trails that were included and no others. And so it just felt inconsistent with that piece of the element. Here we've got maps of a number of proposed trails. We're saying all of these are ones that we would like to, in some way, shape, or form, move in time, knowing that these things can take decades, if not generations, to complete, and things change. And so, I'm supportive of keeping all of the proposed trails in there as written. Happy to make mild changes if that's what staff thinks makes sense. But at the end of the day, there are tons of examples around the country of putting trails near or on industrial property through easements based on the agreements that happen over time between large property owners and government. It's a give and take. We all work really closely together, and I think there's a very, very real possibility that in 10 years or 20 years, BP needs something from the county, and the county wants something from BP, and we all get together and say, "Hey, this is great. We would love to have this actually be a 50-year easement. You don't have plans to develop it for 50 years. Great. You want this zoning, change that we have to grant, but we don't have to." And, so that to me makes total sense that we should keep it as is. While also noting that they're very clear, they're not comfortable with it right now. And there's nothing in this document that to me seems confusing to the public that there is currently a trail there.
Commissioner Eisenberg.
Yeah, thank you. To echo Nicholas' comments and sentiments, I also agree that with doing comprehensive planning and making sure our Parks and Recs is looked through at different lenses, as well as what he mentioned, just this seemed to be the only one in that transportation. And knowing also that multimodal and having, I think in July of 2022, 2022, the Cascadia Innovation Corridor talked about high-speed rail. And so it just makes also sense that we start to look at Parks and Rec and multimodal trail through land use, through climate impacts, and through a lot of different lenses and intersectionality to make sure that public comment and folks in this room and not in this room have comments. And I also agree with Dan Dunn, making sure private property owners are involved and consulted with, especially on large projects that might be ever evolving or changing. As Nicholas mentioned, a 50-year plan looks a lot different than or in my words, a 50-year plan looks a lot different than a 10-year plan. So I'll leave it brief at that and just say thank you, Dan, for inviting us and recognizing that we are online tonight.
Could you bring up that map that was created that shows the alternative route going, what is it? East on Grandview, and then I can't remember the name of the road going along the east side of the, actually it's down by where the dairy farm is.
From the packet or?
It was, I think that you
From
said it.
BP.
It was in
BP?
Catherine's.
Okay. Yes, let me pull that up. I just.
The BP's proposed.
Got it.
Yeah.
You know, if you need me to zoom in.
And Bennett, does that map there dovetail with the current map?
It is different. I mean, it's obviously.
Yeah, but I mean,
as far as-
does it connect and does it connect?
We would just need to extend it, north, but, certainly.
It
we would
ends,
be responsive.
sorry, it ends right in the Birch Bay State Park.
Right, so that it ultimately, the route.
Yeah.
Could be the berm that's in Birch Bay, and then you go north up into to connect to segments that are constructed. So,
I would move that we add this route to the plan instead of showing the trail going across the BP property.
I would second that.
A motion and a second, so we have discussion.
Is the Kickerville, is that on the alternative transportation network, like the wider shoulders? Is that a big question from Mark, maybe?
Bay Road doesn't have wide shoulders.
Yeah, it doesn't have.
It doesn't.
Which one?
Bay Road, right across where it says Birch Bay Bible Community Church, that's Bay Road right through there.
Is Bay, oh yeah, runs east-west.
Yep. That's just a narrow little country road.
And then Kickerville currently shoulders, not shoulders.
I believe Kickerville has.
They might have some,
Little
it
what?
definitely has more than what Bay Road does, but.
But if we're looking at doing improvements, that might be a place to look.
Yeah, I mean, there is no trail across where it was showing until very recently. There's no trail at all. And this would be something that's going to happen in the future and the shoulders and
Makes sense.
So, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion, any more?
Nicholas has hand up.
Oh, let me see. Oh, Commissioner Price, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to move to amend the motion for it to become a direction to staff to evaluate the proposed alternative. And if they believe it makes sense to add to return it to us at a later date.
I would speak against the amendment. I think this has been going on.
Well, we don't have a second yet.
Oh, sure.
Was there a second? Seeing none, we'll go back to the original proposal. Is there any other discussion? Commissioner Terry.
yes,
Does staff have any comment on moving it?
I think we expected, and we actually asked for, a revision that would reflect VP's concerns, so I think we're prepared to make that change, and I think honestly, even this route, it's pending further further conversations as we ramp up to maybe obtain a planning grant that it didn't allow us to come back and. But, you know, I think, as a solution to the issue, definitely.
Mr. Chair. Could I comment that, since staff haven't been able to do the analysis of this route, or feasibility or anything, would you open to just amending the motion to say that this would, similar to what Bennett talked about Baker having adding an alternative route along SR 542 because WashDOT ain't have funding available that would help that. That this is just, it becomes an alternate post-millennium.
Okay, my question would be, what is an alternate of?
What's on the map right now?
Right now,
Both would be on there as potential alternative routes.
Well,
The coastal millennium trip.
the last map, or because one here, but we recently had a map that had no, I mean, it just ended. And, so, I'm not in favor of showing it as an alternate because I think the other alternate is not practical and the property owner has said we do not want people crossing that. Commissioner Brown, sorry, Commissioner Brown.
I would find it much more useful, and I think as a member of the public, more informative if the areas where there is no access are actually almost like a pipeline buffer. So it's a very wide area. It says approximate location. Because when you put a narrow line, everybody thinks it's already there. If you put a very wide area, 500,000 feet wide, it's pretty easy to say, well, there's obviously nothing right here, but this is roughly where we want it to go.
If I can, I think, my understanding is the intention of, I don't know what lives in the history here, of putting the box on the map that has the caveat is sort of the same as what you're saying to some degree, but it's not visual. And I think that was the intent of that box, to identify these as conceptual.
Yeah. I think you're a scribe of willingness on the public's to actually look at the fine print. But it's
Well, so if we were to pass it, we put a wide line on there instead of.
You can put it, I mean, wider line and look.
Whatever you want.
Give it a different.
a wide,
Actually had that thought.
yeah, really sort of a wide hash line that people look at and say, well, it's clearly not a trail here because it covers multiple properties, right? So.
And just to clarify, so your suggestion would be to remove the Millennial Trail that goes to BP's property, which I think is what motion is. Use this alternative trail on the map that you provided, but instead of having it be exactly along Kickerville and Bay, have it be more of like a wide, like, hey, we generally wanted to go on this side of BP, that kind of. I'm fine with that.
And I would apply that to the other segments where you really don't have any evidence that you're ever going to acquire anything. You know where you'd like it to be.
Can I want to make sure we kind of state, because we weren't at the meeting, at the last meeting for chapter 6. Our input into that chapter was the segments along Beta Baker and the segment, not the full Coast Millennium, but the segment that picks up from Marine Drive Phase 2, which is a public works project, to get to Ferndale, Hovanger Park. Those were the two zones that we as a department, because the discussion around chapter 6 was what's implementable. We had given guidance that those were the two segments that we were prepared to begin working on. And so case in point for us is we are about to receive a WashDOT grant for planning for the Beta Baker between Kendall and Glacier. And we had some pretty good conversations with stakeholders. We were almost successful on not quite on a USDOT grant for planning between Marine Drive and Ferndale, working with the city of Bellingham, for city of Ferndale, illumination, with authority and support of that planning effort. So that's why and I'm just sorry we weren't at that meeting. We felt it was appropriate for those two segments, portion of Coastal Millennium and portion of the Beta Baker, to be in the chapter 6 map, because the basis of those applications was they are transportation oriented multimodal trail segments that meet the climate goals and that they have a recreation benefit, but they also have the transportation benefit. So unfortunately, we weren't at that meeting, but that was our feedback into that specific chapter.
If there's stuff like that, to me, that makes sense to have on there. When we were looking at the map, as it has been said, it was a pretty random line on there that didn't really seem like it was, didn't really seem like it fit with the rest of it. That's partly why it'd be nice to have these ones accurate. I think if we can be accurate and have concrete stuff, then it feels more useful than, I mean, the amount of discussion we've had, how confused people are on what's real and what's not. You can imagine somebody who hasn't been sitting here hours talking about this is going to be confused looking at these maps.
And then can you, the map that we've been running off of, which shows the, goes across CC, can you click just like these where the parts that aren't actually there are in docs?
Right, I'm clearly hearing we want to update the map to have segments that are constructed shown.
So, when you come down through Birch Bay, you have that trail all along the waterfront, so that's gonna be solid. And then can you,
I mean, this is where it gets into alternate routes, because there is an assumption that we will be on, say, for instance, the Birch Bay burn. But there might, as we move forward in planning, it might not be that ends up being a route, so I think it's a little,
but that exists. And if you chose not to use it, that could be handled also, but right now it exists.
Yeah, I think this is where we kind of come back to, the purpose of this map is to show conceptual routes and then let us then do the subsequent planning as part of our CPRO's effort to really drive into the detail. So we're kind of back to that point for us anyway, is why we didn't really recommend a lot of changes on this map.
So the other side of this is, if you're a landowner, like I've got several properties around the county. Some of them are, I think, very, very suitable, at least from their natural beauty, for being used as part of the trail system. And there's various reasons why I would or wouldn't do them. And one of the real handicaps is if you do any wetlands mitigation area in there, you're prohibited from allowing people to walk through there as part of generally as part of the mitigation plan, which I think is a topic for discussion. But my point is this is, if you have a wide area, call it half a mile wide, going from this point to that point, and I'm a landowner and I look at that and say, my part of my land is in that half mile. Maybe I want to talk to the county as part of my legacy of providing the county with an easement to include the trail there. Whereas if you have a narrow line, I'm going to say, oh, that narrow line doesn't go with my property. So I'm not even going to have a conversation. So that's the other side of the coin. Narrow lines tell people it's already there. And they also tell everybody who's an adjacent landowner, the county's not interested in doing a trail on their property because they've already chosen where they want it to go. So.
Hearing the comment, I think openness to look at that. I don't know what the schedule is, in terms of work, in terms of timeline and ability to make any changes.
We can work on this. It's just taking a shape file and putting a buffer around it. I mean, sure, that's pretty.
From a map legibility standpoint, if the map already has quite a few symbols on it because of the number of trails that it shows. Having we do define as sort of not, proposed as the dashed, and I think we can add some width to it I mean, it's already, if you were to scale it, it's pretty wide on the way the landscape, that scale looks like it's a pretty direct route, but it's probably a 200-foot width. The actual line is. So there's this caution about having too many additions of different types of symbology to represent a different alternative.
I mean, you want to send me the shape files, I'll send you back something.
Understood. I hear what you're saying about the buffer and then then creating it around the zone. It's just a matter of making sure that the legend provides the clarity that it's intended to.
All right, but I have a GI system. If you want to send me the shape files,
okay,
I'll send you something back.
So
we love that. Right?
we have a motion on the floor to show the route, proposed in the sample that we were sent earlier. Is there any more discussion? Eileen, would you call the roll, please?
Mosseri,
Abstain.
Van Dalen,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes, I think I know what I'm voting on. That's why I was gonna ask you to reread the motion.
do you want me to reread the motion?
Sure, can you read it back? 'Cause
To add the alternative, trail route from BP to the trail map of Beta Baker. Or is it Coast Millennium?
which was there.
Is it to add the alternative or is it to change it? I thought it was to change it.
To change.
Right now,
okay.
there's nothing in there in what we get, so then it would be adding the,
But we have this map. I thought your motion was to make it match what was proposed by BP.
it is to make it match the one that we were sent earlier today,
Okay,
for that to be the route.
All right, just to be clear, so this is to remove lines on the current map and add the new lines, or is it to add a similar section like what is there for Beta Baker Alternative Trail and add a new blue circle set of lines that matches what BP proposed?
Well, I don't know who proposed it, but it's to move it off of the VP property with the new proposal.
okay.
So it's the first thing I said, not the second.
Okay.
No, I'm asking, it's an actual question. I'm asking. I'm
Yeah.
not clear.
I mean, can you scroll up on the map there so you can see where the Coast Millennium Trail crosses at Cherry Point? Yeah. UGA. So it would remove that blue dotted line, essentially from south of Lake Terrell there, where it started at the west northwest. And it would replace it with what is in the comment other from BP, which would be to realign it along Kickerville up the Bay Road. And then
Okay, understood.
back.
It's to remove the line from map 9.2. Dash 2.
So do we want to clarify and restart the voting again from the?
You,
Commissioner, Ben, you have some wording.
Yeah, I think, so one way we could say it is a motion to adopt the BP map with Millennial Trail to the east of BP along Kickerville as a wide corridor, not a specific line, and remove the Millennial Trail through BP, on map 9-2. That seemed.
And I'll go for amending that.
Just a clarifying question, there's multiple property owners, Cherry Point. Catherine, is BP's position only to remove it where it crossed BP's property?
Yeah.
Okay.
And we don't want to speak for other property owners, yeah.
All right, so ALA Energy Commissioners owns a chunk of that UGA now, and actually owns all of what was Intelli's property as well. Thanks. I don't know it.
I don't think it crosses any of the property, but
Yeah, I don't,
hold me
I
on
mean,
that.
it's all conceptual, so I don't know, property boundaries aren't on this map.
From the
Perfect.
discussions I've had with Amy DeVera, it appeared to primarily affect just BP.
Okay.
Is there any objection to amending the motion?
Nina has her hand up.
Oh, no. There. Okay. Commissioner Eisenberg, go ahead. Thank you.
Did the surrounding property owners are aware of tonight's meeting or were consulted or asked questions about the new proposed line?
On this one, it is not crossing anybody's private property, the new proposed line.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Eileen, would you continue, please?
yes. I'm just gonna recall the roll with the amendment. Mosseri,
Abstain.
Van Dalen,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Dunn,
Yes.
Eisenberg,
Abstain.
Greg,
No.
Barton.
Yeah.
Motion fails. 4 ayes, 1 nay, 2 abstain.
I think the question we all have is this one of the ones where we have to have five.
If we're adding it to,
And that's 4 yeses out of 7
yes,
people are here.
but if we're adding. I guess because it's not a final.
Yes, not a problem.
So then it passes.
Just for our records, and the concept is that this would only be in the public, in the county right of way.
Correct.
You said not on private property,
Not on private property.
only in the county right of way.
And we're doing the wide,
Well, as wide as the county right of way.
yeah, but we're doing that, so it's not, county right away, it's not a half a mile wide.
It's all conceptual.
So then it passes.
Oh, you say you're moving this along.
I have a question about air conditioning, and I need a mark to answer this one. Do we have AC in here?
So we did, I'm not sure why it was shut.
I was wondering.
I can open the windows. I opened this one.
Yeah.
Then I will have a chat with facilities. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. I will open.
Sounds like I picked a good day that I couldn't actually make it in person, it turns out.
You picked a great day.
Somebody's turning it up, hopefully we'll get out of here.
It was running when we got here.
That's why I shut off midway through the meeting. So
Yeah, I heard it go quiet. Yeah,
like something's wrong.
nothing is right.
It might be automatic, just
We don't get another one of these.
I apologize.
Go ahead. Yeah, a question, more of a kind of a broad question about, budgeting. So I think, on one hand, you know, we live in a county where 2/3 is, you know, public lands, national forest, national park, that kind of thing. We got a fair amount of parks here. And then we also have, so we have a lot of existing parks, and we also want to make more parks. From a budget perspective, what's our budget for like current operations maintenance to maintain what we have? Versus what's our budget for acquisition? We say like, yeah, we got plenty of money, everything's good to go, or it's like, it's tight for operations, or we got plenty for.
Great question. I think, our sources of funding for acquisition, are primarily conservation futures. To some degree, there's some opportunities for lead funding for that as well. The current climate, both of those funds are under pressure. So if you're looking at, moving forward, we are, looking at external sources of grant funding for acquisition as well through RCO funds, through the Recreation Conservation Office. I think our priority in this budget cycle is certainly taking care of what we have, but we are, as a department, making efforts to develop planning that says, we just actually talked about this week, preparing opportunities and doing a better job mapping. So you talk about the opportunities along the corridors for electric utilities. We've been working hard. I'm on a ramble, but we've been working hard with other departments and with our staff and coming on to do a better job of mapping opportunities for land acquisition. Whether we can pursue those or not, is a question, but we want to be able to do a better job of actually identifying those and being able to think more holistically about what opportunities we might be able to get together to leverage those. So part of what you see in this planning document is a focus on collaboration. It's a focus on getting to the point of having more community input on opportunities. So that we can position ourselves for those external funding opportunities. And we've talked quite a bit about that with our commission. So I think the reflection in the new document is a recognition that we need external sources of funding to supplement recurring county funding that we have there. That's increasing in time.
And then kind of two follow-up questions. One, I think there's a suggestion here to go with impact fees to fund parks. And two, I think there's a public comment about how we currently charge fees. I think in the plan, it was, I forget the exact language, it's from somebody who's like, do we want to evaluate how we're currently charging fees? And I forget whether this said, no, we don't want to evaluate that, yes, we do. So I guess maybe we could talk about the impact fees first, and then we could talk about the idea of use fee. What are your thoughts on impact fees?
Well, I think impact fees, certainly been a recommendation. We have evaluated that recently with the executive office. In terms of parks, we're not sure that, at county parks anyway, we're not sure that it would generate sufficient revenue. It can only be used also for new developments. So our challenge right now is really, in a lot of cases, taking care of what we have. So we didn't really see that as a viable option to move forward at present. As regards to the other comments, I do believe we were in support of that change that, we're looking at new funding opportunities, in general, so.
Great, and then, one question about, on a different topic, about multimodal, I think in transportation chapter, we talk a lot about what multimodal is, what it means, what it includes, what it doesn't include. In this chapter, when you use the word multimodal, what does that mean to you?
So we try to clarify that in the chapter. So multimodal to me is, it's creating the opportunity for us. It's separate from multi-use. So multimodal it's the transportation oriented active transportation network definition. That's how we would intend to use it to be consistent with the grant opportunities that we would apply for if we washed on particularly. So that is, it's generally going to be a paved path that would be open to pedestrians, non-motorized, bikes, scooters, all sorts of those type of modes of transportation.
Okay, so I guess one comment on that is that in the transportation chapter, the consultant said that multimodal includes motorized vehicles. Like when I use that word, that's different. A lot of my questions were like, we're making a level standard or making safe things for only multimodal, and I see like in that chapter defined it as exclusive of motor vehicles. So when you use it here, I guess what you said was that your use of the word also excludes motorized vehicles.
The paths that we would construct generally are going to exclude motorized vehicles. We have the possibility and we have the suggestion that we can do e-bikes. So that's maybe the
That's a
exception.
follow-up question there. Yeah, how do we address that?
I mean, I think that's a policy we need to develop. I think there's potential for those to be part of the active transportation network. But we need to have this policy in place to be done. So moving forward.
Commissioner Brown.
Just speculating pipeline easements. Yeah, I think your acquisition cost per mile would be a fraction of what you do for actually trying to buy a piece of property. You only need a path, you don't need the entire property. The landowner can't do anything except cut grass or run cattle. So they're gonna look at that and say, well, I'm getting paid again for the same use. And I can still cut grass and run cattle around the trail. So I just think that'll really stretch your dollars a long way.
Oh, no, sorry, I just said that's all that I have.
What's your sequence now for the rest of this?
I'm sorry.
What is your sequence for going through the rest of this?
It's whatever the commissioners would like to do.
I have two issues to bring up.
Okay.
All right.
Go ahead.
And I don't know the reference to it, but there was a question about expanding the facilities, and I know it was a bit of a rewrite. Expanding the facilities at large campgrounds to include showers and laundries and stuff like that. And while I'm certainly very pro camping, very pro sort of facilities like that, what I also want us to be aware of is if we're not careful, the campgrounds are going to turn into homeless camps. The campgrounds will turn into homeless camps. The real problem with that is not that we're providing a place for a person to stop and rest for the night. It's that I own 2 acres of 10-acre property with 5 parcels, 10 acres just down on the corner of Bakerview and Northwest. And on the cleanup for that, we pulled out 244 tons of waste that had been dumped there by people camping there illegally. So my concern is to make sure that the campgrounds, we find a way to ensure the campgrounds are for short-term camping and don't become long-term homeless camps, predominantly because of the garbage that gets to accumulate, the human waste, the needles. I mean, the property I had and the Joe's properties were covered in hypodermic needles. And the most stunning thing for me was all the dead rats. And the rats weren't poisoned. The rats had been licking the fencing off the wrappers, and the homeless campers had dropped on the ground. The rats would eat it and overdose. So, and it's human waste, the whole gamut. So that's the balance, and I don't quite know how to strike that, but I want to make sure we have a record. It's a concern.
Thank you. I mean, I know we do have periodically have issues with folks utilizing our campgrounds for, you know, taking a shower, things like that, if you're using the restroom, more of an operational issue for us, if we do any, time to time, but we have procedures in place to keep that from.
And I don't have an objection to them doing that. It's camping and dumping stuff that is hazardous to other people or starts to accumulate, that's my concern. So.
Commissioner Eisenberg, you had your hand up.
It was answered in the reply.
Yeah, one thing that's not on here, and Daniel, you might remember this discussion when I was in the council, but what I would like to see on some of these long trails is encouraging food trucks. Because then you got someone who walks or runs for 5 miles, stops at a food truck, has something to eat, whatever, then goes another 5 miles. I mean, this is, I haven't done this in Europe, but from people I've spoken to, you know, it's very common to have very short distances between facilities where you can stop and get a cup of coffee, stop, you know, rest your feet, get something to eat, before you then continue on the long one. So I'm hoping that as we're doing these trail systems, that we're developing pads where people can put in a taco truck or something similar. And maybe part of the fee for doing that is they have to provide portable toilets and maintain them. And so the burden doesn't go on the county. Right? But if I was running a food truck and you said, hey, I'm going to give you enough customers, of course the question, I'm going to give you enough customers, you have to provide portable toilets and some benches. I think most guys would jump at it, provide them in for everything.
You know, go ahead, just to add on to, in Europe, they have beer gardens.
Yes. Clearly, we know where he hides.
I was gonna say, I'm a little premature, but this planning grant for Beta Baker, well, that's more specific to the actual specific multimodal improvements along the border and to watch our brains and some specific departments. We're also applying for some planning assistance to EPA, which, again, this is, I'm alluding to this, but it's more collaborative in nature and the community trying to develop some consensus around vision associated with recreation and how we can not just provide recreation, but also to economic development to the extent that's important. So I think it's true that if we're successful in that, that's a type of process where we will be able to explore some of the opportunities that might bubble up in those conversations within the community. So I think similarly, and we didn't really move down this path just yet, but we've had conversations about, you know, what the Bellingham to Baker Trail across and actually what that might generate. So I think we have that in the back of our head. We're just trying to be judicious and how to use our resources to move those conversations forward.
Yeah, I mean, there's trails in Whatcom County that I've used much more often. If at the end of climbing up the top of the hill, there was a nice place to sit and rest my feet and get something nice to drink and so forth. So,
Right. Are there any more additions or changes, deletions to this? We need a motion to send this along. Are we ready for that?
Sounds like it. I'd make a motion that we move this on to council. I'll second it.
Any discussion? Eileen, would you call the roll, please?
Yes. Mosseri,
Yes.
Van Dalen,
Yes.
Brown,
yes.
Dunn,
Yes.
Eisenberg,
So we need to.
Greif,
Yes.
Barton,
Yes.
Hassett.
So, council, thank you, commissioners, thank you. What we've got is updating, staff will look into updating the conceptual trails maps to show where they're actually built versus conceptual, best available at the beginning then. To amend that 9.2, to show that post-millennium grade or proposal to on BP property to replace that with this. I'm no longer get rid of it.
And make it bigger.
Wide line.
We might find times we do that with all.
Well, yeah,
We can do that on all the other ones. Just do it as another exhibit, you know.
So, well, we can do this in just a few minutes. Is there any unfinished business?
Yes. Yes, there is.
Commissioner Dunn?
As we go through with, you want me to move over here? Yeah, I can see there. Got kind of two things. One is about the sequence of chapters. If you sort of in your email, but I wanted to get the perspective of the commissioner as well.
Yeah.
And then the other is about the timing. So I suppose it's a question for a commissioner to get their impact, or their kind of feeling about things. And right now, as part of the timing, how the time is laid out is that we're planning on ending in December, which is what the RCWs kind of require, but there's not really a penalty to going past that. As long as we demonstrate that we're doing stuff, we're not gonna get anything back from the state. So one question is, how do we feel about continuing this past December? And the other question is, in terms of sequential order, right now we're kind of jumping around from chapter to chapter. And as Mark pointed out in his email, there's reasons for that. There's legitimate reasons for that. And would we prefer to have a different layout, or are we okay with kind of how the chapters are?
I'll comment. For me, I understood the sequencing to chapters. It was a good idea, but I understand from the explanation where we're at. And then the second item, extending it past December, I think we should work to get, government always drags everything out. That's my thought. I would prefer to just get it done and get it. We're looking at a 20-year plan, and all of a sudden we would be June of next year. That's my fear. And so that's my concern. I'd like to get it done. This is my thought.
Commissioner Masseri?
I second all that.
Any more? Commissioner Brown?
So I had a motion for discussion tonight, and I'd also ask for, you showed up, I think not before, I couldn't find it. Did you? What sent? What? The email with the dates.
I'll put it up.
No, just if you could send it back out to all of us. 'Cause
Oh, yeah.
I couldn't find it.
It was sent to the PC.
Yes, I emailed it around.
But you go to your PC email.
All right. Yeah, I was looking at them, I couldn't find it, but I must have.
2:01 p.m.
2:01 p.m.
Yep, I got it.
And then for timing, Bill, are you good with December? Of your purpose?
As far as, I think we should work to get it done. I agree with Commissioner Masseri, that we should get it wrapped up. Yeah, then Commissioner Van Dalen.
So good, and then we're all good with the extra meetings. I think it'll be a lot more, especially if we have like land use chapter, housing chapter. Those would be, I think, a lot of work to take this. We're all good with putting in the time, those things.
Yeah, I just want to thank you guys for that. There's what I didn't put in my email, there's a lot of moving parts to this. There's that you guys aren't necessarily directly involved in. There's line study going on about sea level rise in Bridge Bay, but we'll have some recommendations. There's coordinated water system plan being developed with the health department. So the public water systems, processes and procedures. There's Fort Bellingham is conducting an industrial land study. That I think hopefully will be published by the end of this month. So there's a lot of moving parts and things that are informational to come on that date, but I don't necessarily all it's going to order. We sort of go on that stuff. So we'll bring that stuff to you as applicable or update you as we do. So, and some of that will mostly be applicable probably in some chapter 3 into this fall. So yeah.
Any other business?
my motion.
But
So I ask for a motion to be considered in the final origin into the record.
I have it up on the screen.
Oh, good, thank you. That's it. All changes, additions, deletions, and modifications that receive a majority vote must be accompanied by a sidebar comment explaining the source of the change, the reason for the change. And the reason I say that is because having been on the receiving end of the planning commission's work on this stuff, if there's no notes explaining why a change was made, the council is going to feel much more freedom at re-editing it. Because in other words, they say, well, it's a change, but what's the significance? So all I'm trying to do is capture the significance of the work that went behind each of the changes so that the council can look at it and say, oh, it's just one word. Oh, but that one word has real significance. There's a lot of time spent on that one word. So that's all I'm doing, is trying to capture the value of the work we're doing in the final document. So it doesn't just get run over, frankly, by the council. Other ignorance.
are you making a motion?
Yes, I'm making that as a motion.
I'll second.
Okay,
Yeah, I'd support the motion. Maybe you could talk a little more about what that would look like. Like, for example, we change, so that we made a motion, for the movie, The Map. Could you talk a little about what you would hope to see in that sidebar? Like, it'd be 3 words, would it be a paragraph? Like, what would you say if you were writing that sidebar?
I think, we have to trust Eileen a bit to try and capture the significance of something. So, if it's one word from, say, 3 months to 5 months, but there's not really any real discussion about it or whatever, then you just say, planning commission said 3 months, or if the staff say 3 months to 5 months. But if there's a lot of discussion because you're saying, there's a timing issue, it's either because of seasonality or because of state law or whatever the case may be, but some sort of significance to that, then that should be in that comment. So that they know it's not just sort of an arbitrary, it was just like 5 months, 4 to 3 months. So otherwise it just gets lost, the value gets lost, is what I'm saying.
Eileen, go ahead. I wanted to bring you in on this, but go ahead.
When you say sidebar, are you requesting like on the chapters we're talking about, or are you saying within the minutes have a sidebar comment?
On the document that goes to the council, because they'll get the copy of the comprehensive plan with edits and comments on the side.
Okay.
Right, so those comments that are already being put on the side. I'm just saying, let's be a bit more thorough about them. Let's make sure we capture anything of significance in there on the side, because again, when I was in the council, that's the main document I looked at. I looked at the existing document with its edits and the comments on the side. That was what I really referred to as I was trying to understand the intent and the reason behind the planning commission.
Commissioner McCary, hold just a minute. You'll go next. I have a clarifying question.
Yeah.
Is this motion just about what we're working on here? Is this about
everything we're doing on a comprehensive plan?
Okay, so this only applies to the comprehensive plan.
Correct. Well, I think it's good policy anyway.
Well, but I mean, just a second, because you made a motion.
Yeah.
And then you talked about the comprehensive plan, and so, I just want to make sure this is clarified exactly what.
I think your point is valid. It should be on everything we do, because we don't want the work that goes into the staff work, the public comment, the commissioner's work, we don't want it to get lost. So.
Okay, and then, Eileen, of course, I don't work with her all the time, but we talk regularly, and sometimes her workload is extreme. And so that's one of my concerns, and I'll get to you too. I'm not objecting to this at all, but I want to make sure that we don't overload Eileen on it. And so, okay, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so, and I believe this is what you're saying, it would just be when there's any changes, you'd have a comment like staff already does with their edits. And in the past, when other staff members have been bringing this to us, they're making edits live often while we're making these motions. And I think they would just make those, whether they make the comments live or not, but the comments before the packet got sent out would be put in there. So I don't even know if it is all on Eileen or not, or if it's on Parks when it's the Parks chapter, right? If you go back and make an edit, it would have the same sidebar as in all of them. It doesn't seem any different than what's already been doing.
Yeah, Eileen, go ahead.
If we're talking about like the specific chapters, it would be the planner in charge. So we would have different comments, and like in the past, for example, the Strong would have two versions. He would have the markup, which is like this with the comments, and then the theme version. And there would be both that's available. I'm not sure which one he would send, but we have two versions of it, so council does see whatever they want to see.
Council typically used to see both versions.
Yes, so maybe they're still seeing both versions.
Well, right, so this is a conversation we've been having as staff, in presenting the drafts to you guys first, the public review. I said, let's put comment bubbles in here and track changes, so for some of these that were like maybe different and new, why is this change being made? So we've done that wherever there was a new statement requirement, that's why this is in. Are you asking for that kind of a comment bubble in the document versus what's in the minutes, which is a summary of the same thing, but maybe more?
The documents, like this document here, it will have the staff comments because the staff have already written them in.
Right.
And what I'm saying is, when it's material, not on nitpicky stuff, when it's material, we should have the collective commissioner comments in there as an explanation for what, because the staff say, we want to make this change because of the bubble.
Yeah.
And
And we have, some bubbles are staff bubbles, some bubbles are consultant bubbles, some bubbles are public works staff, some are PDS staff, some will be health staff comments, so like, we have to sort of different. So my question, Eileen, in track changes in Word, can we create another bubble color or something for planning commission?
It automatically generates. I can do it in PDF. I can highlight what PC agreed on. Just for example, like from the transportation chapter in 612, on that chapter, when I sent the additional one for June 26th, there was a separate bubble. Planning Commission last meeting said this is what they voted on.
Is there a way we can have the planners just doing the same thing we've done when we've reviewed other documents? In the past, the planners who had written this would be editing and making notes so that when that went forward, you would see it, or when we saw it again. I don't know why we're not doing that.
We're not doing it because I'm not a planner and I'm the one that's in charge of that.
No, I know.
So like in other chapters, like Matt will do it, Lucas will do it.
We can do things sometimes on the fly when we're amending policy language.
But
You guys didn't do that tonight with this element, it was map amendment, so it's a little different, we can't just edit the map.
No, I get not editing the maps right now, but how come we don't have a planner that's doing that with these?
Because our planner retired.
Because I'm the planner.
So, I'm sorry, are you saying that only planners can edit?
No,
items
so
on
they
somebody's
can,
planner?
but if you want it on the fly, I'm currently the one that's running all of this.
Yeah.
No, I know,
So,
In this case, the Parks Department staff, not PDS, did these changes.
Right.
Most of them.
but that planner couldn't do this, couldn't do those changes?
that would be me adding it later when I redo it.
You're talking about somebody taking the minutes and then writing why we made each of the changes in the.
No, I just don't, why isn't the planner here to go through it like normally?
PDS owns this now, so, because this was a Parks Department element, so they wrote it and they did all that, it wasn't PDS staff.
But to your point, like I said, usually Matt or Lucas, this wasn't their chapter, we just took it on. Therefore, that's why they're not here. But usually like the next meeting, it will be Matt, he would be the one on the fly doing all of the changes while I run the meeting. But because tonight I am doing both, I don't have that.
I understand when you're trying to run the meeting to not be able to do it at the same time. I was more saying, not for you to do more, why don't we have the normal?
Because we're
staffing?
still looking for replacement for Cliff Strong.
Commissioner Brown,
So you have access to the Word version of this, right?
I do,
Yeah, and so I'm suggesting you do it in the Word version afterwards when you're,
yes.
reviewing stuff and doing the minutes. Just at the same time, maybe as you're doing the minutes, just capture the key points. Because you're listening to tape anyway, so.
That's what I was doing with the transportation, which is why the minutes are not too.
I know we've had issues in other elements with Word. Cliff had this problem because when you send it to somebody, it has color coding, right, for different people made those changes. And then you send it to somebody else and the third person edits it, then it changes all the colors, all the other colors, the existing colors.
But you can do it as a comment bubble.
Right, that's what I'm getting at is the.
I can make it a
This is-
different color, yes.
Yeah.
So when I go back and do all of this, yes, we will have.
So is that, Rod, so your suggestion, if I understand it, is to have some of the PDS, like when you, like we made one motion today, basically, and have a little bubble on this document that says, we voted to move the trail from here to here because BP doesn't want their land, or some version.
They made it clear that they were not
Right.
They were not accepted on
A couple of
that.
sentences, kind of thing, and that seems reasonable to me.
Commissioners thought it would be misleading to leave it on the map.
Yeah, I'm not gonna write like a whole paragraph.
Yeah, I say like a couple sentences, maybe, something like that's up there.
Yeah,
Right, I wanna be, yeah.
I was like, wait, hold on.
To Eileen's point and to Kelvin's point, we don't wanna recreate a bunch of work that we're gonna do. We get it.
any more business?
Wait,
we need to vote on
We have
it.
a,
Do we
we
need
have
to
a
vote?
motion
Yeah.
and second, so.
And is Sunita still here? I see Nick, you're there.
We're still on the
I
floor.
do not see Sunita.
No, she dropped off about half an hour ago.
But we still got a quorum.
We still have a quorum.
Okay, so.
Thank
Yeah.
Good. I'm gonna got it.
No. After you do, good.
Brown,
Yes.
Dunn,
Yes.
Gregg,
Yes.
Mosseri,
Yes.
Van Dalen,
Yes.
Barton,
Yes.
passes.
Okay. Eileen,
Yes,
next meeting
yes.
is,
Next meeting will be, chapter. Capital facilities. Capital facilities,
Chapter
thank you,
4.
chapter 4 and land capacity and those,
that's Matt,
yes.
and then, do you have quorums with
We
the
sure do.
commissioners for both of those joint county council planning commission meetings?
As of now, I have July 22nd as a quorum.
Yeah.
I was waiting to hear back if council will have, if it's official that they're gonna have the August 6th.
Okay.
Kathy is out
Right,
until
until
Monday, so, yes,
Are we still on for July 24?
yes,
Okay, I will be only on phone driving, so not Zoom, just on phone to make that work that
Okay.
evening. Okay, so you might want to make a note of that. So I'm gonna be, and it's sketchy coming back from Eastern Washington, so
yes.
wanted to get it on
I
record.
hope it's not snowing.
I know, at least it's
Yeah.
not snowing.
Yeah, that's right. No snow this time.
Is there any more business? Any more business? Seeing none, the meeting is adjourned.
8:03.
You didn't say anything after I.
No, because you were very clear.
It's another miracle.
Eileen, what time do we start on? 22nd?
22nd is 3 o'clock.
3 o'clock?